What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Got a video for you guys tonight. This one is about Chad Dawson versus Gene Pascal. It will be for the Ring Magazine Light Heavyweight Championship. And there are a lot of people who are on the fence about whether or not this fight should be for the Ring Magazine Championship. To determine who the number one light heavyweight in the world is, etc. First off, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to call the Ring Magazine Championship belt an official championship, because from what I know, I believe it's computerized. And at the same time, it's just like the alphabet soup organizations. But at the same time, it deals with, it has a ranking system, and usually what they do is number one and number two would have to fight each other. Number one and number three would have to fight each other for that specific championship belt. So that's, when the Ring Magazine Championship, or the Ring belt, is is put on display or on the line, when there's, I guess, an official number one fighter in the division. So number one, I believe, is Chad Dawson. I believe he's the number one light heavyweight in the world. Number two, but in some cases, a lot of people believe that Bernard Hopkins is the number one light heavyweight in the world. But Chad Dawson continues to fight. And though he's had kind of a long layoff and hasn't been fighting as much in the last couple of years, he's fought and continues to fight. And some of the guys that people are putting in front of him, though some want to say that he did duck one of the fighters who he dropped the belt to fight Tarver, but honestly, I honestly don't blame him for dropping that belt, for not facing that mandatory and fighting Antonio Tarver. And also with Tavares Cloud, he did drop the IBF belt and did not fight Tavares Cloud, and fought Glenn Johnson. And Tavares Cloud was his mandatory, so that's how the IBF became vacant. Cloud had to fight Clinton Woods, and he put Woods into retirement back in like August, I believe 14th of last year. Pretty much put Clinton Woods into retirement. And Gene Pascal is just won the belt that Chad Dawson had recently, or dropped a couple of years ago, so he could fight Antonio Tarver. So my opinion is this: I do not believe this matchup is a Ring Magazine Championship. It's not putting together one or two. Though I will say Gene Pascal is probably a top 5 light heavyweight, despite having only 3 fights in that division. And with Chad Dawson, it's like this: who else can he fight? Out of every champion in the light heavyweight division, believe it or not, Pascal is perhaps the longest reigning one, despite holding the championship for only a year. He's practically the longest reigning champion. And Antonio Tarver is no longer in the division. Glenn Johnson lost to Dawson. Hopkins is looking at a possible fight with Butte, or moving up to heavyweight. So why not make, and this is how I look at it, why not make this, a Ring Magazine Light Heavyweight Championship bout? Why not? Because, you have the guy who you consider the king of the division, and you have a guy who's the longest reigning champ. So I understand why they would make it, a Ring Magazine Championship, but at the same time, you have to look at it and think that the ring is probably just trying to make money, perhaps, just off of this fight alone. And Chad Dawson is fighting to get that WBC championship back in his hands. So it's an interesting fight, to say the most about it. It's a very interesting fight when you look at it. And also what baffles me about it is the fact that Bernard Hopkins does not want to fight Chad Dawson. He's expressed, and Chad Dawson has called him out on many occasions, on a few occasions. Chad Dawson has straight up said his name in interviews. Has straight up said, I want to fight Bernard Hopkins. I want to fight Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins on ESPN last year said he'd like to take on the winner of Johnson Dawson. He said it, and those words came out of his mouth, that he wanted to fight the winner of Dawson Johnson. And assuming that Johnson won, Johnson's a guy he already beat. He already beat Glenn Johnson in 1997. So what would that do for him? What did the fight with Roy Jones do for him? Those are two fights. A fight with Glenn Johnson does nothing. That fight with Roy Jones did nothing but avenge a loss for him that was like 16, 17 years ago. So, it's like this, why not fight Chad Dawson for Bernard Hopkins? Or why fight him? Because Chad Dawson is a high risk for Bernard Hopkins at this point of his career. And if you look at Dawson's resume and you look at Lucien Butté's resume, they're totally different. See, and this is an argument that you can make, is Dawson is taking on fighters that Hopkins already beat. Tarver and Johnson. A couple fighters that Hopkins had already defeated. And Butté, he's only faced Lebrão Andrade and Edson Miranda. And the fight with Andrade was very impressive. And the knockout of Miranda, was something that everybody, to be honest, everybody had seen coming. It was him defeating Miranda. And I like Lucien Butté. But I think that, in this fight, everybody says this about Bernard Hopkins. And this fight doesn't kill that misconception of Hopkins. Making a name for himself out beating smaller fighters. Whether that be the case or not, this is proven that Lucien Butté is the champion in a small division. Those 7 pounds, though it's not a significant change, it's only a 7-pound difference, to be honest. But this is for more people to use that claim against Hopkins later on. While Chad Dawson, people are going to make the argument of he pretty much beaten older fighters. And with Tavares Cloud, I would love to see a build up to that fight. And I think maybe that's something that people should work on. The promoters, like Don King, who promotes Tavares Cloud. And I just think that the promoters should work their way up to building that fight. Put together, he's fighting Glenn Johnson August 7th. Let's see his performance in that fight. Put him against maybe Shumanov. Another pretty good fighter, who just had an action-packed matchup back in February. Put him against him. Have him unify some belts and build up a matchup against Chad Dawson. Because, around, in 07, and to be quite honest, the problem with Tavares Cloud, and I know a lot of boxing fans want to see this fight, Dawson versus Cloud. The problem with Tavares Cloud is he's very inactive. He's very inactive. He's fought one time in 08, once or twice in 08, once in 09, and a year later, pretty much 51 weeks later, he's in another fight with Glenn Johnson, which I believe is going to be dangerous, but it's going to be the true test for Tavares Cloud. But I do believe that if we want a matchup between Cloud and Dawson, we have to build it up. I think and the same with Hopkins Dawson. It's a fight that is already built up. It's a fight that a lot of people want to see, but more than likely, I doubt that we're going to see it. So, should Pascal versus Dawson be for the Ring Magazine Championship? No, I'm not going to say it should be. I don't really agree with that decision, but I believe it's the best we can get now. So anyway, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.